All right, everyone. Today is the other quadratic word problems, which are the consecutive integer problems, um, and then the area problems. These will be a little bit easier than yesterday's because they're familiar to you. We did first semester we did problems just like them, and then second semester they were quadratic. So let's get started with these. So the first one, given two consecutive even positive integers where 5 times the smaller is increased by the square of the larger is 326. So when you look at that and you're trying to find those two consecutive integers, there's a lot of words there. Just take it in small chunks. It says two consecutive even positive integers. So remember that's x and x plus 2. If it's even or if it's odd, it's always x and x plus 2. If it was just consecutive, it would be x and x plus 1, x plus 2, and so on and so on. So we have our x and x plus 2. Now we're just going to break it up. It says 5 times the smaller. So out of these two numbers, the x is the smaller number, so we'll say 5 times x. 5 times a smaller number. All right. Then it says increase by, so we'll say plus the square of the larger. So we go back to these two. Out of these two problems, x plus 2 is the larger one, so we're going to square it. Now, we do have to put a parentheses around it because it's a binomial. Is in math always means equals 326. So now we have a quadratic equation. Last semester it was linear. This semester is quadratic. We've learned a ton of ways to do this. We've learned factoring. We've learned completing the square, quadratic formula, Desmos, polysolve, all those things. And so you get to choose. Now I'm going to choose today. I'm going to choose the easiest way to do it. Actually, I want to choose two easy ways. I want to use Desmos, and I want to use a quadratic formula calculator on the computer where all I have to do is type in A, B, and C, and it gives me my zeros. So, but to get to that point, you need to know what A, B, and C are. So we've got to do some simplifying here. So I've got to take care of this double distributive property problem here. So that's 5x. Again, there's another chance to practice square double square. X squared, double these two, so plus 4x, and then square the last one, plus 4. You guys get in 11th grade, you're going to thank me for teaching you square double square. All right, so now I'm still cleaning this mess up. I've got like terms, so x squared, the 5x, and the 4x are like terms, so that's plus 9x plus 4 equals 326. All right, almost done. I can't put it in Desmos until I get this 326 over to this side. So that's x squared plus 9x minus 326 plus 4 is negative 322. So now I have it to where I can put it in Desmos. So I'll go to Desmos, and Desmos, I've already plugged them in, so it'll save a little bit of time, but here it is, x squared plus 9x minus 322. All right, and it's zoomed out, but there's my parabola, right, going down and coming back up. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for the zeros. I'm looking for where does it cross the x-axis, and it crosses it here and here, right? So my two answers would be negative 23 and positive 14, right? Now, in the problem, if we go back to the problem, it said it had to be positive. So we're going to ignore the negative 23 and we're only going to use the 14. All right. So let me show you an example of if I put it in into my quadratic formula calculator. Again, I just Googled it and I came up with this calculator. So A was 1. Oops, almost dropped that computer right there. A was 1. B was 9. And C was negative 322. Calculate it. All right. And there's the solutions. The same one Desmos showed me, 14 and negative 23. All right, so the same one that Desmos showed me is the same answer that the quadratic formula calculator will give me. So I want to go back to here, and we're going to say x equals, the first number is 14, and since 14 plus 2 would be 16, those are my two numbers. So those two numbers, if we take the 5 times the smaller one, if we say 5 times 14 plus 16 squared, we would get 326. Same thing for the next problem. All right, it says odd. Since it said odd, it's still going to be x and x plus 2. All right, now I'm just going to translate. It says where the square of the smaller number. Well, this is my smaller number, so I'm going to square it. Increase by plus. I'm just translating. If that said decrease, I'd put minus. If it said less than, I'd put minus. But it said increased. 2 times the larger. So this one's the larger one. So the way I say 2 times the larger is 2 times x plus 2. Anytime I use a polynomial, I got to put in parentheses. Is equals 147. So now again, just like the last problem, I got this equation. I've got to set it up now where I can put it in Desmos. I've got a distributed property problem here. So x squared plus 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 2 is 4 equals 147. Bring this 147 back over here. So that's x squared plus 2x minus 143. Positive 4 and negative 147. All right, so now I have my A, B, and C. I can go to Desmos, plug that in, and there's my equation. Again, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for the two zeros. There's the positive one, and there's the negative one, right? I'm going to ignore the negative one because the problem said had to be a positive number, so my first number is 11. So my first number is 11, and my second number will be 11 plus 2, 13. All right, now I skipped plugging it into this quadratic formula calculator because that's pretty easy. You can plug it into Polysolve right here. You can plug this into Polysolve. You know how to do that. That will give you the two number. That will give you your 11, and then you can figure out the 13. All right. So now we'll go to the area problems. All right. It says the length of the rectangle is 2 times the width. The area of the rectangle is 72 feet squared. So here they've given us some information and then they told us the area. So this is the one where we draw a rectangle. I always say that this side is my width and I say this side is my length. All right. Now this is where we have to look at the problem and they compare the length to the width in this problem. All right. So that means I'm going to use W for width. All right. When we have to choose whether we're going to use L for length or W for width, it's whatever they're comparing it to. All right. Because now that I know that W is my width, now I can go and I can write the length using W. It says the rectangle is 2 times the width. The length of the rectangle is 2 times the width. So that means that this is 2W. Here's my width. Here's my length. So now I have those labeled. Now I can do what the problem tells me to do. It says the area of the rectangle is 72 feet squared. Go back to elementary school, middle school. Area is length times width. So I'm going to say length times width, 72. So now, again, quadratic formula, quadratic problem. I've got to do whatever I want to do. I want to do Polysolve, Desmos, quadratic formula. This problem actually would be a lot easier if I just did 2w squared, multiplied those, equals 72. I would use the square root method on this because I don't have a w, I just got w squared. I would divide by 2 here, and say W squared equals 36. And then I would take the square root of both sides and say W equals plus or minus 6. All right. And so therefore, my width, I'm going to ignore the negative one because I can't have a width of a -6. So I'm going to ignore the negative. My width is going to be 6. Put the units in, 6 feet. And my length is going to be 2 times that. So my length will be 12. And 6 times 12 is 72. So there's my answer. I do want to show you, if you don't want to do, if you didn't see this square root method coming, you could also do Desmos on this, right? You could also do Desmos. So here's the equation for 2x squared minus 72. Again, you'd have to get it by itself, but there's the equation. When you graph it, there's the -6 and there's the +6. So you whether you want to use Desmos or whether you want to put it in PolySolve, whatever you want to do, you'll get the right answer. Okay. And again, if you want to plug it into here, all right, in this problem, A would be 2. Since there is no x, that would be 0. B would be 0. And C would be -72. You hit calculate. All right. And there they are, -6 and 6. So whatever method you choose, all right, you can do it. All right. So the last problem, it says the width of the rectangle is 4 more than the length. So this time they're comparing the width to the length. So when I do my labeling, there's my rectangle. When I do my labeling, I'm going to say this is the length this time because they're comparing the width to it. So it makes it a lot easier for me to write the width using L. The width of the rectangle is 4 more than the length. So that means length plus 4. So now I can go, and since the area is 60, I can say length times width equals 60. All right. To clean this up so I can put it in Desmos, or I can put it in PolySolve, or I can, whatever you want to do, I've got to do distributive property here. So that's L squared plus 4L equals 60. I would bring this 60 back over to the left side. So that's L squared plus 4L minus 60 equals 0. I could even factor this if I wanted to, but I'm not going to take that time right now. I'm just going to plug it in Desmos real quick. When I plug it in Desmos, there it is. My zeros, my solutions are right here, 6 and -10. Since I can't have a length of a rectangle -10 inches, I'm going to use the positive one. So it's 6 inches. So my length, since I'm solving for L, my length this time, my length is 6 inches. All right. And now my width will be the length plus 4. So my width is going to be 10 inches. All right. And that's what I'm looking for. So if you need help, please contact me. I'm on Google Meets every day from 9 to 12. Good luck, and I hope you do all right.